Mitchell,
Jesse,
yes, sir. Let's try it again.
amazing.
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 Yes, sir. It's loud and clear
Great.
now. So,
Great, sir.
once again, folks, Mitchell Gerber is currently 100 miles from the Chinese border, and he's risked his life to expose the Chinese Communist Party horrific crimes. Mitchell, how long have you been down there?
Jesse, I've been here for 2 years and I'm doing God's work because by 2001, I received a message from God to expose this red dragon, which is in Revelations as we know it. And from Ephesians, I have nothing to do with the fruits of the deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. It is shameful even to mention what the disobedient do in the secret. So when I found out what the Chinese communist regime was doing, not only covering up and lying about this virus, Jesse, I took it upon my manhood as a duty, as a believer, as a God-fearing man, to do what I could to expose this evil atrocity before the virus was the forced organ harvesting of innocent people that have been killed, cut open while alive in China, and sold for their organs for massive amounts of profit. Now, Jesse, this hasn't come to the forefront yet, but it will. And so I took it upon myself. I've been here for 2 years in Vietnam, and I've risked my life to expose this evil in Vietnam.
Where are you from?
A South African born and American citizen raised. So I've
Oh,
been in
okay.
America for 20 years.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. And so, have you seen these things happening where they're cutting people open and selling their body parts and things like that?
I haven't seen it personally, but the allegations were confirmed in 2001 when three investigators, David Kilgore, David Mattis, and Ethan Gutman, exposed this crime against humanity, a new form of evil, Jesse, where hundreds and thousands of innocent spiritual people, house Christians, Uyghur Muslims, Tibetans, and the largest group, these innocent people called the Falun Gong, have been sent to state mandated hospitals under the Chinese watch of the military and the highest ranking officials of the Communist Party, plus the president, their organs cut out of their bodies while alive in over 1,800 hospitals, 254 concentration death camps, and then sold for massive amounts of profit, and the bodies then burned in the boiler rooms of the ovens to conceal the evidence. So the evidence was confirmed in 2006, and now between 80 and 100,000 transplantation murders are conducted each and every year for the last 20 years. So it really touched my heart as a human being and as a man, where what is a man who cannot make the world a better place?
Yeah.
So I took it upon myself as a spiritual man, as a God-fearing man, as a man who believes in God, to go on a personal crusade, and I've done this ever since.
So, are these organs being sold in America too?
Yes, and they have been sold back to the Chinese high-ranking officials who have been infected by the coronavirus, and back to the Chinese citizens themselves, and to rich international patients. And the largest group that has been targeted is a spiritual group called the Falun Gong, which became the largest spiritual movement in China. It's a peaceful type of Chinese yoga type of practice that believes in truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance. And they were targeted because the government, when the numbers grew so high between 1992 and 1998, the Falun Gong movement reached to about 100 million people, outnumbering the number of people in the Chinese Communist Party. So, including with the Christians, the Chinese Communist Party started to kill these people for their organs and make a fortune off them. So they've been selling it to the rich Chinese donors in China, international patients, medical associations for the last 20 years. And when this occurred since 2001, the organ tourism business skyrocketed by 30 to 40% in the United States and Canada and South Korea alone.
Why would why would the people in America buy those parts knowing if they know what's going on, how they have been treated in China?
Well, Jesse, that's the situation. That's the problem. They don't know what's going on because this is a new form of evil, and the communist regime has spent at least 1/4 of China's gross domestic profit covering up this Holocaust, this genocide, particularly against the Falun Gong. And because the waiting lines and the waiting times for organs dramatically increased from 4 to 5 years when you had to wait in line for an organ of a kidney and a liver and a heart, they were reduced to a kill to order specified date within a couple of weeks. So this is forcefully sending hundreds and thousands of people to death camps, just like taking a lobster out of a tank, cutting it open, forcefully removing all the organs while the person is alive. So the transplantation is the murder.
That's
And
amazing.
then killing them and then sending them to state-mandated hospitals and selling the organs. So with my team, we have created the website stoporganharvesting.org, and we've banded together with a coalition of investigators who represent endtransplantabuse.org to expose this. And we have 52 pieces of evidence, and this is a new form of evil, Jesse. So I'm just very grateful to come on your show and share this, because I love your show and I love the way you are a God-fearing man, and any person who believes in God has to stand against this evil.
Yeah. And so, are you like talking to people from China? How are you able to tell us how you're finding this information out?
Yes, my investigation started in 2001 when the brutal persecution of this innocent spiritual movement called the Falun Gong began.
Right.
When the president of China outlawed this practice, basically declared war on the spiritual movement because it grew so fast, so quick, and the Chinese government started to research the medical benefits of this spiritual practice, which improved the health dramatically in terms of physical and spiritual and emotional wellness, and particularly the organs. And with Falun Gong becoming the largest spiritual movement, they decided to slander it, demonize it, and then started to kill hundreds of them for their organs. So only until 2001 and then 2006, the allegations of forced organ harvesting through phone calls to the doctors and getting them on records, and then Chinese surgeons coming out. And one of the Chinese surgeons who performed a live organ harvesting in 1995, I brought on the coalition to London with me to testify in London at Westminster Abbey. And these kind of evidential confirmations were coming out. So 52 pieces of evidence. But I have been blacklisted from China. I had to sit down with the Federal Bureau of Investigation because I've been under severe threat by the communist regime.
So what would happen to you if they found you?
They would torture me. They would try to get me to give up my sources that are deep inside China and in Vietnam, and they would definitely send me back to America. They've blacklisted me from China, but I take my hat off to myself for doing all the work, because what is a man, like I said, to fail to expose evil and to fail to stand for good is unacceptable. And I just wanted to share with you, Jesse, the quote that I have about. There was a great quote about in Deuteronomy: "Be strong and of good courage. Do not fear, nor be afraid of them, the evil. For the Lord your God, He is the one who goes with you. He will not leave you nor forsake you.
Yeah.
The Lord is my light and my salvation. So whom shall I fear?" So I've risked my life for the last 20 years exposing this evil for other people. I didn't have to do this.
Do you have pictures of any of these things that you talk about? Do you have on your website? Do you have pictures of live people being cut open and organ parts are taken away?
We have tried to get our doctors or people in China. It's extremely hard to get into the medical facilities, but yet we have the confirmation, we have the recordings of the doctors, tape recordings, we have the websites of the Chinese Communist Party selling these organs, but unfortunately we haven't got actual depiction of organs being cut open. We have the confirmation at endtransplantabuse.org. We have over 15 years of confirmation hearings and reports. And the China Tribunal just unanimously voted on this and confirmed that this is going on. The evidence,
Are there Christians in China?
Yes, underground Christians, yes, that have also been harvested for their organs as well.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Why don't the people of China stand up against the government?
Well, if you know the Chinese Communist Party, to understand how organ harvesting could happen in China, we have to understand how evil this reign of terror is. This is a demon, red devil. This is Satan. incarnated into China.
Oh, man.
Since it came into power, Jesse, in 1949 under Mao Zedong. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Over 100 million people have been murdered. 5,000 years of Chinese culture wiped out. Millions of innocent Chinese girls killed. House Christians have been tortured, brutally persecuted. Uyghur Muslims, Tibetan Buddhists, and Falun Gong. Chinese Communist Party, there is a great publication called the 9 Commentaries on the Communist Party that details how evil this Chinese Communist Party is, that has controlled China, the Chinese government, the Chinese people, and the Chinese civilization. And living under communist rule, you don't have any freedom of rights, you don't have any gun rights, you don't have any private property. You are property of the state. They control you and everything you have. And when you enter out of your mother's womb, you have to swear bloody allegiance to this red devil. And it's a cult. It's a satanic cult. Robs people of their dignity and destroys you mentally, physically, and spiritually, and cuts off. The worst thing about this, the Communist Party cuts off the connection to God, anything spiritual. So you will see how many Chinese people now in China don't even believe in God, as well as in the West, when atheism has become a trend.
Yeah.
They don't believe in God.
Let me ask you this. The people who are living in China, they're born there. Do they know what's happening to them is wrong? Do they know they're enslaved, or do they see it as a norm because they were born into that?
A normalization. The Chinese Communist Party has such a deceptive brainwashing technique. It's called the Stockholm Syndrome, that brainwashes you, controls you. It's like an MK Ultra victim that doesn't understand, cannot control his own mind. Under specifically fear, they control out of fear. And as I said, if there are avid listeners and avid readers out there, the 9 commentaries on the Communist Party, Jesse, at www.ninecommentaries.com, it's a free publication to read and to watch, will shed light about how evil and sinister the brainwashing techniques are to destroy the Chinese people, to force them into brutal poverty, brutal slavery, and brutal fear. So the average Chinese citizen has no idea and will completely just, they can't think for themselves. So they control the mind. But they are waking up slowly but surely, because they're seeing the West. They want their freedom. And actually, honestly, at this time, because the communist regime has been now exposed to the world, more than ever before, the Chinese people are waking up from this reign of terror that they've been living under for the last 50 to 70 years.
Why? I've noticed that there are a lot of Chinese kids here in this country going to school, and they're visiting, they're traveling around the world. If things are, and I believe you, because they're so bad over there, why won't, when these people leave to go to school or wherever, why don't they stay in the other country? Why do they go back to China?
Because the communist regime has a grip on them. When I was in university, I was studying international politics at Georgia State University. A couple of Chinese people would see my booth when I was exposing the brutal persecution of the Falun Gong in China. And they would come up to me and say, "We will support you, but we are scared to support you in public because we have our communist agents infiltrating the student organizations of every university in America. And if they find out that we're talking to you and that we support Falun Gong and we support you in exposing this evil and freedom, they can cut our passports, they can kill our families, they can destroy us, they can cut our bank accounts." It's a reign of terror, Jesse. And I can tell you, in communist Vietnam as well, if you stand up against the government or say anything outside of the Central Party communist line and mouthpiece, you are targeted for extreme punishment. And that is what's happened in China with the virus as well, that where 8 doctors came out and talked about and exposed that this was a human-to-human transmission, a SARS-like virus, that they needed to do something about it. But they were punished, and they've disappeared ever since.
Yeah.
And this was as early as December.
So our government has to be aware of what's happening in China, and yet this country does a lot of business with China in trading, outsourcing jobs. We use their technology and all that. Why would our government participate with China, knowing that it's doing this to the people?
Because of massive amounts of money. You know, there's a saying, extinction before a loss of profit. So people nowadays, especially those who have lost their faith in God and do not know divine principles, do not know truthfulness and compassion and tolerance, do not pray for salvation and don't repent. This is why viruses come as well, because it's a warning from God to tell people, look, you've got to face yourselves. You've got to believe in yourselves. You really have to repent and believe in the Lord. Otherwise, this is what's happening. And what has happened for the last 20 years when the Wall Street bankers, the World Health Organization, the Rockefellers, Henry Kissinger, I heard Steve Bannon saying this the other day on American Voices. He was very close to the president. I'm sure you've known Steve Bannon.
Oh yeah,
Jesse.
absolutely, yeah.
He was saying these people have blood on their hands. They've turned away from God and they've supported the red devils in China because there's so much money involved, and especially with the forced organ harvesting and the slave trade that has funded the consumer market for the last 30 years.
Are there other Chinese people who have left the country and they are fighting for their freedom to help others overcome the situation?
Yes, absolutely. There are a lot of the Hong Kong movement, the Taiwanese movement, the Chinese freedom movement, as well as the Epoch Times out of New York City, and the NTD TV, which is the largest Chinese democratic television and radio station outside of China. They are non-violently protesting and exposing this kind of evil that is happening in China. And the world is waking up more and more. So yes, in China as well, there has been a serious movement called Tuidang, which is a complete quitting of the Chinese Communist Party, withdrawing, leaving, uprising against the Chinese Communist Party. And millions, over 354 million people have already risen up against the Communist Party, waking up against this evil and wanting their freedom. So yes, there is a great positive change and movement in China.
So there's a possibility, if this continues, that the people in China will be free one day.
Yes, sir. And with the likes of President Trump, who knows full well about the persecution, the State Department, the Justice Department, the House of Representatives on both sides have passed numerous unanimous resolutions to urge the Chinese Communist Party year after year to stop the forced organ harvesting of innocent Falun Gong practitioners and house Christians and others. And so they've done something good. The American Congress and the American people are good-hearted people. And this year it's been blasted open with this Communist Party virus. And it's not being racist to call it the Chinese Communist Party because they sourced it, they unleashed it, they covered it up and lied about it. But what is so serious, Jesse, and I think the world, as we come to that point, and it's going to come in the next couple of months or maybe I give it a year, when the world is going to learn about the forced live organ harvesting, where hundreds and thousands of innocent people, particularly the spiritual movement, the Falun Gong, have been killed for their organs. Legally has occurred. No other country in the world legally state sanctioned like this.
That's amazing. We'll have some problem. Let me ask you, give out your website again for those who may want to check this out.
Please, Jesse. Stoporganharvesting.org and faluninfo.net. faluninfo.net.
Do you practice that religion, Falun Gong religion?
I am a Jewish Christian man. I believe in Christ and I do believe in God, and I practice it because it's really good for health. It's not a religion. It's very similar to Chinese yoga, Tai Chi, martial arts, and the exercises are really good. So many Christian people, Jewish people, believers, they just enjoy yoga, but doesn't affect any faith, and it's not a religion. It's more of a spiritual movement. Yet it was demonized as a sinister cult and a terrorist cult, just like Christianity in China as well was demonized as a cult in order to turn public opinion against them and kill them for their organs, just like the Nazis did with the Jews in Nazi Germany.
One last question. Are you surprised that our media here in the United States, the liberal media, is covering for China? They tend to cover up for China.
They are mouthpieces, and they know full well about Falun Gong. They know full well about the Chinese Communist Party's forced organ harvesting, the Wall Street bankers, the hedge fund managers, the think tanks, Henry Kissinger, the globalists. They all know, and they've all got rich off the slave trade, and they all got blood on their hands, as Steve Bannon said. And that's why I'm so grateful, Jesse, to you for letting me come on your show, because it just proves that you are a man of God. And every Christian out there, to fail to support what is good and to fail to expose what is evil, God is watching. God is watching the actions of a man, and by those actions you will know them. And it's very important to stand on the side of God and to stand on the side of destiny, to do what is right, and to stand for what is right. So I'm grateful to be on your show to expose this evil.
Well, I'm glad that you came on, Mitchell. How long will you be over there?
As long as I'm alive, Jesse, as long as I'm alive, I'm actually going to go on a couple of more shows. If there's anyone in the audience, or if you know anybody, if Nick, your producer, has anybody else that allows me to come on, I do this for no money. I seek no reward. It's just God's work, because something inside me ignited my heart and ignited my spirit and ignited my divine call to action that had to proliferate me and propel me into doing this for someone else, whether they are Chinese.
How old are you?
I'm 40 years old.
Oh, okay. Well, be careful over there, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And again, if anyone likes the yoga or Tai Chi, check out the Falun Gong exercises. They're really good and peaceful for today's anxiety. But thank you, Jesse. Again, stoporganharvesting.org. God bless you, and thanks for letting me come on your show.
God bless you, man, and we'll have you back again. Thank you for coming on.
God bless you. Amazing.
Amazing. Thank you, Mitchell Gerber. Amazing. Man, amazing. And don't forget to like, follow, tweet, subscribe, and share the Jesse Lee Peterson radio show, folks. We really appreciate it. We are at war. It is a spiritual battle for the soul of America. And it's going to take all of us to do it.